hole-by-hole coverage, final round coverage this Sunday on 97.3 ESPN. Your defending champion, Spieth. Rory McIlroy attempting to complete the career Grand Slam. Only 5 players have done it. Gil Capps is a managing editor at the Golf Channel, associate producer for NBC Sports, and he is in Augusta as we take a look at the 80th of the Masters. Gil, welcome back. How are you?
Mike, I'm doing great. How are things up north?
They're very good, not as brisk as your view, I'm sure, but great storylines for us to watch on television from our vantage point here, starting with Rory trying to be the 6th player to complete that Grand Slam, and he played really well at the end of last year. Is that one of the top storylines entering into this year's tournament?
You know, every year we come here, there seem to be a half dozen or so storylines that really grasp the imagination of the sports press here, and Rory is definitely one of those. He played pretty well at the end of last year, Mike, but he's kind of struggled this year a little bit. Look, when he is on, we've got a lot of great drivers in the game. I understand Jason Day, Dustin Johnson, but I think Rory, with a combination of distance and accuracy, when he is on with the driver, there's nobody better, and that really. I think that influences the rest of the game. When he's struggling with that driver, it really affects everything from there in, and he's struggled with it. In his last stroke play event at Bay Hill a couple of weeks ago, he had 6 double bogeys in 72 holes. That's the most ever in his PGA Tour career. I've been struggling a little bit on the greens. He went left-hand low about a month ago and made the switch. So, his prospects maybe are a little unsettled, but he's a guy who, he's going to have a lot of chances here, I think, and he could really probably break through this week. Maybe his own expectations aren't quite as high as they would be if he was playing really well.
Gil Capps with us over at the Golf Channel. Jordan Spieth, the defending champion, Gil. He's attempting to be the 4th player to win this event back-to-back years. Tiger, Faldo, Nicklaus. Spieth, obviously, it was a huge story last year. He is the defending champion. Do you look at him as the guy to watch this weekend because of the defending champion and trying to win back-to-back? Or, he is not the favorite coming in, in terms of the odds anyway?
Well, if he's lost his number 1 world ranking to Jason Day, tomorrow morning, Mike, he is really the one of the first big names out in the morning, out at 9:48 with Paul Casey and Bryson DeChambeau, the reigning U.S. Amateur champion. It's kind of hard to read where Jordan is right now. Because he said just a couple of days ago, I feel like I'm in an even better position with my game this year than I was coming in last year. Well, the results, they kind of really don't show that. And one of the things at the Masters, we talked about is, of course, what favors the long hitter, and it favors guys who make putts. But since they made the big changes to the golf course back in 2002, adding yards and kind of shrinking in some fairways and a second cut and more trees, etc. Greens in regulation has been the common stat among winners. That's what they do well in more than any other. In fact, 10 of the last 12 champions of the Masters have finished top 5 in greens in regulation, and that's what Jordan has really struggled in. Last year at the Masters, he was 2nd in greens in regulation, much better than he was on tour last season at 49th. But this year on tour, 164th. He's really struggling in that ball striking area, and then he's not making quite as many long putts, but it's those greens in regulation that have really, really hurt him. So I think with Jordan, we'll get a pretty quick indication. Tomorrow morning, you win the Masters, you have to get off to a pretty good start. There are only a handful of Masters who started with an over par round in the entire history of the event have wound up winning.
Well, he got off to the good start last year and never turned back. I mean, he ran away with it, wire-to-wire finish last year for Jordan. The favorite is Jason Day. He's won the last 2 events he played in. He enters as the number 1 player in the world. In his last 13 starts, he has won 6 times, including the last major, the PGA. So are all eyes down there right now on Jason Day?
Look, he's the best player in the world right now. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But golf is it's a funny game. The best player in the world doesn't win every week, and winning as the world number 1 is really hard as well. This is the 30th anniversary of the inception of the world golf rankings back in '86. And since then, the only world number ones to win majors, Ian Woosnam and Fred Couples, Tiger Woods, and 2 years ago, Rory McIlroy. So it's really tough for that world number one to get it done that week. And Jason, I don't know. I think the question maybe would be, does he want it too much? Has he been here too long and too prepared? He's been here since Saturday, and it's something too. If he were able to do it, Mike, it's very rare. In the history of golf here in the modern era, only one other player has been able to follow up his first win in a major championship with another win in the very next one, and that guy happens to be Jordan Spieth last year.
Phil Mickelson, Gil, it seems that he seems like a forgotten man with all these young guys that we keep talking about, but he's seeking to become the fourth player to win 4 Masters titles. And since 2001, he's won the Masters 3 times. And is there a forgotten feel around Phil Mickelson?
I don't think so, because if you would have asked me just a couple of days ago who if I had to make one pick for this week, I would have picked Phil. And it's because you tend to take guys going to Masters, if you're looking at it, to pick a guy. You go back in history, it's usually guys who've been playing pretty well. Maybe they have a win, maybe they don't, but they've kind of at least been trending and it's been there. And Phil's been that guy. I mean, he leads PGA Tour in scoring this year, but he hasn't quite closed the door. And he knows what to do here. I mean, he knows the golf course he knows how to play it. He knows how to handle everything off the golf course with his routine. And his record here is just phenomenal, right? I mean, you mentioned the 3 wins and trying to get number 4, but 11 top 5 finishes here. It's tied for second all time, 15 top 10s, and it'd be a great story if he won, be the second oldest Masters champion ever. But my concern about Phil, and I'll get into the weather here, is the forecast for the next few days. I don't think particularly favors Phil. Supposed to have a chance of rain overnight, maybe into the day tomorrow. Then it's supposed to get cool and very windy. We're talking maybe even during the weekend, wind chills, in the morning, and lows down around 38, and highs in the mid-60s, and gusts, up to 30 miles per hour here for the next few days. And I don't think that kind of weather plays into the hands of a guy who's a high ball hitter like Phil Mickelson.
Gil, we know the eventual Masters champion has come out of the final Sunday pairing 21 out of the last 25 years. Do you think this will be a jumbled pack when we get to Sunday? Do you think there will be a lot of people playing for something on Sunday? I mean, last year it was kind of a very anticlimactic, but do you think this year brings us something a little different because, as you just mentioned, that weather could be a factor keeping people close together?
I think in general, my theory is over the years that you see bad weather, it kind of does compress the field. It mimics those guys who the golf course favors or who've been playing well, kind of come back down into the pack a little bit. Traditionally, right, the Masters, that's the old saying, doesn't begin until the final nine on Sunday. But the last time we had weather like the what is being forecasted, and weather can sometimes be forecasted incorrectly, but was back in 2007 when Zach Johnson won on that Sunday with a record high score, tied the record of one over par that week. So I think that's the kind of scoring that we may see. But sometimes when you get that bad weather too, you tend to get one or two guys kind of separated. It's going to be so what kind of weather they're talking about. It'll be hard to see a lot of birdies, and people will be making a lot of charges on the weekend. But you never know. That's the thing about golf and sports. We could see one of the greatest rounds in the history of the sport with a snap of the fingers by one of these great players.
Gil Capps is with us, the managing editor of the Golf Channel, and I think we were remiss to mention again that the Tiger is not there. And I mean, are people starting to get used to this as the sport? Is it moving on from the Woods era?
I'm sorry, who was that? Tiger? I think they are, Mike. I mean, you just don't, even though when he put the video up of him hitting the 9-iron here, not too long ago created a great buzz in the media and a buzz online. But last year, I did a lot to kind of erase the absence of Tiger, the top of leaderboards, with Jordan Spieth and Jason Day and a lot of the great golf that we had. And this year, now that it's an Olympic year, golf back in the Olympics, it's the Ryder Cup year, and talk about all these great young players again. It kind of put Tiger and what he did and what he meant to the sport. It's kind of pushed it back to the back burner a little more than it had been there when he wasn't here, and people the top story and every sports paper was when's Tiger coming back, and that's still a question, but definitely not like it was.
Gil, you are down there, and obviously today's a fun day. You get to see some of the stars of the present and past mingle together. Can you give us a little fun moment from the day that you kind of observed for our listeners out there that makes this tournament so unique and special?
I have to be honest with you. On Wednesday, I tend to avoid the par three tournament. What I like to go down and do on Wednesday is to walk around the golf course. There are no players on the golf course. Most of the patrons are over at the par three or have headed home. And it's very serene down there walking around Amen Corner and 15 and 16 and just standing there, maybe sitting in an empty stand and watching the grounds crew prepare the golf course, or thinking back to where shots hit from. I will tell you a funny story. I've walked down the right of number 10 fairway now twice this week, and each time I've gotten toward the bottom of the hill, I've encountered literally each time about a dozen different people from different groups scurrying around that area trying to find where Bubba Watson hit that great iron shot that he hooked out of the pine straw in 2012 to win that playoff over Louis Oosthuizen. So that's the kind of stuff when people come here and really true golf fans come here. They search around for that history and that lore, and just the ones who'll be back on Sunday will be waiting for more to be created.
Well, we can't wait for the start of it tomorrow, and don't forget final round coverage on Sunday starts at 2 here on 97.3 ESPN. Gil Capps from the Golf Channel, NBC Sports here, and we'll talk to Gil on Friday as well, as we'll recap round 1 of Thursday's start, and looking forward to that. Always look forward to the start of the Masters. Thanks so much, Gil.
Hey, Mike, thank you very much.